There is a new leader for the Texas power grid operator. The Electric Reliability Council of Texas named Pablo Vegas as CEO. He's an executive at a utility company in Ohio. His appointment comes more than a year after a winter storm shut down much of the Texas grid, contributing to hundreds of deaths. Fox 4's Sean Rabb joins us now with what the hiring really means. Sean.
Yeah, Heather, Pablo Vegas is no stranger to Texas. Listen, 14 years ago, he worked here for a private electricity provider. He takes over October 1st. In an ERCOT press release, he says he's excited to return to Texas, the state that has the fastest growing grid in the nation and peak demand larger than any other state.
We identified 107 persons. We ultimately interviewed 21, and we zeroed in quickly on Pablo Vegas.
Pablo Vegas is an Ohio utility executive who becomes the next CEO of ERCOT. His base salary will be $990,000, with a compensation package close to $7 million over 6 years.
Pablo is the right leader at the right time to help us address the complex grid we have, the dynamic mix of resources we have.
A grid that failed during February 2021 when equipment failed, millions were without power for days, hundreds died, and state lawmakers pressed to shake up both ERCOT and the Public Utility Commission.
We've done an incredible job over the last year.
Brad Jones has been ERCOT's interim CEO.
With equipment.
Able to keep the power on last winter and so far this summer, especially during record usage July 11th and 13th. When parts of the state were in jeopardy of blackouts. The light stayed on in part because people turned up their thermostats.
So tight conditions throughout both of those periods caused us to ask for consumers to support us, to help us, and they did.
And while we've come close, there have not been energy emergency conditions in Texas in 18 months.
The grid has totally changed, and it's changing still further. Our growth in electricity demand sets us apart from every grid in the country.
The challenge for Pablo Vegas, building a grid with more energy reserves, more resilient in extreme conditions, and more reliable. That includes increasing dependency on renewables like wind power and solar.
Rooftop solar is also another recent initiative that we've taken on to try to make sure that that we're looking at that demand side, what's going on the demand side. And on sunny days, knowing that we're going to get that response from the rooftop solar, making sure that we're plugging that into the midterm load forecast.
Because the system is dynamic, it requires dynamic leadership with the experience to build a system needed to adapt to changing technologies, changing public need, and changing resources.
And the changes to the system since Winter Storm Uri, Heather, right now, well, they are working. I mean, power stayed on through the winter and so far through this summer. But as demand increases, simply from the sheer number of people moving to Texas, as well as all of the new construction, new businesses going up, to stay ahead of the demand curve and keep the power on, there'll have to be more changes. Those changes are going to come with some price tags, and some of that cost is going to be passed on to us in what we pay for our electricity.
Right, it seems to go up actually all the time. Sean, thank you.